further ado, yeah, Beniamin, again, thanks a lot for taking the time and joining us today.
Really great to be here. And like I said, super excited to have this conversation and always share more with the community of what's happening, what's to come, and also get the community involved with these cool things that I think are really valuable.
Awesome. Yeah, so to get started, do you want to maybe just introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your background and what your team is currently building?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I think I initially stumbled into Bitcoin sometime in 2013, joined the space, was super intrigued by Bitcoin, then went in to be part of the NEM core team in 2014. Then in 2016, together with my brother, I started a fund. And then after being through a lot in the blockchain space and seeing some of what I thought were the most important and pressing problems that were not being addressed, or at least not properly, I went on, convinced my brother, and then we gathered a team that I always want to say a super strong team with which we can literally build rockets. Here we are 3 years after a lot of effort, and we've actually delivered at this point what I think is perhaps the most robust and scalable blockchain architecture in the world, which can process more than 15,000 transactions per second with the 6-second latency and 100x lower transaction cost than Bitcoin or Ethereum. Of course, there's a lot to dive into, but this has been my focus. This has been the focus of our team for the past period, and I think it will continue to be the focus for the foreseeable future, which we see to be super exciting.
Yeah, those are some very impressive numbers and very exciting. And two, I love the family nature of you both working on this and kind of been through the battle over the past a few years. And yeah, it's exciting times.
Definitely. It's always been interesting to build this architecture from the design phase to the prototyping phase to the production phase. And I cannot overstate how challenging and interesting and how much of a discovery, let's say, a journey this has been for the entire team. With repeatedly we've had to reinvent ourselves, and I'm quite surprised how resourceful the entire team has proved to be, and how much we've pushed all the obstacles that came before us, and then pushing all of this, I think we've discovered that there are basically almost no obstacles that we cannot overcome. So here we are having this interesting conversation of how we're trying to integrate and working with Chainlink, which is another very interesting project in the space, which incidentally has also been part of the space since I think 2017, something like that.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride, and yeah, really exciting. So you kind of mentioned it, but do you want to go into more details? What makes Elrond unique, and if I'm a developer, why should I be building something on Elrond versus one of the other chains that might be out there?
Definitely. So the idea with Elrond is this: before starting Elrond, we've looked at all the solutions that were being implemented at that point, and especially being not only invested in most of the projects that were relevant at that point and having direct access to what was happening inside the teams, how they were approaching the problems and so forth, but also being very up to date with the academic literature with respect to the problems. We've understood that there were a lot of incremental improvements that were coming in the space, but these incremental improvements would only solve the problems for 3 to 6 months. Then 6 months down the road, you would end up with the same problem again, having to solve it again and so forth. So what we thought from the get-go was that if we would build a solution. It should be a solution that was going to be at least 2 orders of magnitude of an improvement compared to what was implemented in current blockchain architectures at that point. So the idea was then to come up with what we thought was going to be an internet scale blockchain. So the internet scale blockchain should basically solve the scalability problem once and for all, so that you basically can focus on the other stuff, the interesting stuff of building things and not having to worry about this problem. We've of course built this on adaptive state sharding and secure proof of stake, which are 2 important breakthroughs that unite and form the Elrond architecture. But more than that, having delivered this in production and ready is a huge milestone. So it's one thing to discuss about the elegance of the design of the architecture, which I can also appreciate. So there's value in that. But the road from that point to the point where you deliver a project working in production with 15,000 transactions per second, when the other projects are struggling to do something like this, years and years, and then with basically unlimited resources cannot yet solve the problems, I think is important to appreciate and underscore. And then moving to the second part, which I think becomes the most important theme, once you have the network ready, the key thing is to understand what is really valuable for the developers in the space, and to see things in a way that is complementary to what's happening in the space. So the key thing with Elrond is not only that we solve these very difficult problems and open up a new solution space where you don't have scalability, the scalability limitation, but rather you can design products and build decentralized applications that can essentially work at the speed and scale of the internet. And this is key to Elrond. But then doing this requires understanding a bit what the developers really need and would love in an architecture. So we've taken a lot of time to design and refine a few key things around the network layer, like the RWAM WASM VM, which is a WebAssembly VM that is super fast, perhaps the fastest at compiling smart contracts and so forth in the space. Then we put a lot of effort in designing a smart contract Rust framework so that developers can write the smart contracts in a much more secure way. Then we've put a lot of effort in designing some libraries that allow them to interact with the blockchain part really easy. Then we've, of course, created an IDE that allows you to tie everything together and put it all in an environment where you can easily deploy the contracts and do some testing and then play with the technology really easy. Now, in addition to the dev tooling part and the performance part, we also recognize that it's really important to have a business model. Whenever you design something, you always are, especially as a startup, almost you need to see the death. That if you don't reach the customer and so forth, it's going to be game over very soon. So what we've thought is it would be extremely useful and valuable for developers to have a 30% royalty fee, a royalty program built in directly in any smart contract. So that if you build a successful dApp application, you basically have a built-in business model into that. So for every smart contract that you basically have and have written, you receive 30% of the fees that are processed through the smart contract, which I think is extremely useful. And then last but not least, I think when you're building, you want a community around you. And this is where Elrond shines a lot, where you can see that we have a lot of passionate people that really put their hearts into this, and don't just sit there and look at stuff and let's say not care. Rather, they're here day and night, pushing everything together. And if you want to build something, to have this type of community is a hugely invaluable asset. So this is something that I think every developer will look for, and we're super excited to have developers part of the Elrond ecosystem, and then welcome all the new developers that are perhaps looking at this conversation.
Yeah, well, you definitely have the community. There's a lot of people on this stream right now, so definitely shout out Elrond community for showing up. And yeah, really exciting, and love how you've taken, it's great to talk about like transactions per second, these different things, but really taking the developer approach, and seems to be working very successfully for y'all, and dev tooling and setting up the developer for success with the business model and different things is huge. If what is it built in Solidity, or how would someone go about building DApp
No,
on?
sure. So the idea is that we've moved away from the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, and we've built a new VM, which is on WebAssembly, WASM. This is really fast, but it's also a lot more secure in that instead of writing in Solidity, you write in Rust. And for Rust, we have basically created a framework that allows you to build a contract, interact with them, and then also have these libraries, as I mentioned, that allow you to play with this part of the tooling really fast, really easy. Of course, we always appreciate feedback because there are things that we still discover, always eager to improve them. But being part of an ecosystem during the early days is a tremendous opportunity. Imagine how you would look now if you would be part of the Bitcoin ecosystem since, let's say, 2010 or 2011, or how you'd look at yourself if you'd been part of the Ethereum ecosystem from 2014, 2015. I believe this type of opportunity is what we're discussing now. Elrond will have this type of super high upside and impact trajectory for the future. And looking back, you'll be very happy if you'd be part of the early people that really built interesting things and help bootstrap some of the ecosystem and community stuff. So yeah, I think this is a tremendous opportunity that developers, in addition to what we've mentioned before, would do well to take advantage of.
Yeah, very exciting times, and indeed. With this, are there any Elrond-based dApps out there right now, and how many developers would you say are in your ecosystem and network building with you?
Mm-hmm. So the idea is that there are about 50 collaborations and partnerships. There were actually 50, let's say, a few weeks ago, but in the meantime, a lot more has happened. We've, of course, selected a bunch of very interesting projects that are either implementing or building directly on Elrond, and they span from both the financial liquidity dexes part, verticals, to almost everything else, because there's a lot of hunger and exploratory curiosity at this point to just see how the blockchain works, experiment with it, and then try to build some interesting use cases on top of it. That being said, we do have some key projects that are building on Elrond. One of the key projects is, of course, Orion. Orion will be this meta bridge that brings liquidity from both centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges to one single exchange that is, of course, decentralized, and it will be extremely useful because it transforms each of these entities into a kind of broker where they have incentives themselves. And interestingly enough, this will open a lot of new opportunities, just as, let's say, automated market makers unlocked a different path on top of which you see a lot of financial interests at this point. I think this kind of meta bridge of liquidity will be huge for the Elrond ecosystem. And in addition to this, will have a lot more projects. I do think that we now have some games. We now have some applications that are already working, from whether it's different type of financial applications with respect to staking, liquidity pools, and so forth, and more traditional applications that are trying to integrate that technology. But we're still, let's say, trying to take a very different approach here as well. While we encourage everyone to take a look and build on Elrond, we'll try to define a set of verticals where we specifically try to select one candidate, one project that we try to make a superstar. Because if we can do that, bring the community around them, teach them everything that we've learned, and help them succeed, at that point, there will be other projects fighting to become the key, let's say, vertical champion on Elrond, on the new verticals that we will deliver. And I think this is especially useful and important in a period when everybody just copies the other stuff. Like you see immediately when something comes up, then the next project or layer one and so forth just copies the new stuff. There's not much innovation into that. And at Elrond, we pride ourselves in taking the time to think things through, dissect them, and see the value. And then when we decide onto something, we want to either make it super big or not do it at all. So this is why I think projects would do well to take a close look at Elrond and get in contact. And we're quite happy and excited to hear about the interesting ideas that might spin up and get created in the ecosystem during the next period.
Yeah, that's motivating. You're making me want to go build something on Elrond right after we get off this talk here.
Definitely would welcome you.
Yeah. Is there any like key pieces that you're seeing? You kind of mentioned Orion. Is there other kind of key dApps that you're looking for within your network that you think would be a good fit for one of those kind of candidates?
Yeah, so the key idea for us is we're trying to take a step back and look at things on a much longer time horizon and reason from that point backward. Let's say looking 5 to 10 years from now, what are the really key things that you wish you'd had? Sort of living in the future and building what's missing. Then looking back, it's quite easy to see what are the wrong paths and then the interesting paths. And this is why we think, for instance, like I said, liquidity will be huge. Having a meta bridge for liquidity that connects all the other segregated islands of liquidity could be something extremely useful and extremely valuable. Then moving forward, it's clear that, for instance, gaming will be huge in this kind of respect. And of course, we'll have some conversations related to this. And then we of course have carefully thought about a few different verticals as well, but we want to actually take the moment to announce them in a way where when we announce them, we also clarify some of the key insights, why we think this are super useful, and then allow people to start applying with their ideas, committing to building something, giving them some time. And very, very soon, actually, perhaps in January, we're going to also organize one of the first hackathons on Elrond, to make sure that everyone has the awareness about the dev toolkit, about all the cool things that I've mentioned before.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely keep us in mind for that hackathon, and we'll be in touch about that. Love to help you. And so there is a lot of infrastructure in people using Ethereum right now. Have you given thought, or like have any plans, like how do you like migrate people from another chain to another? You kind of mentioned like, incentivizing liquidity swaps and different things. What's your kind of thoughts around that?
Sure. The idea is that, again, if you look longer term, it's clear that interoperability will not only be good or decent, it's a necessity. You'll not be able to live without interoperability. So given this, of course, we are building and working right now on some bridges that allow you to easily move either liquidity, tokens, and so forth between chains, and then open up this kind of opportunity of building different things, whether you're discussing DeFi and the different modules that you want into DeFi. All of this cannot be like a closed economy, but rather you want a connected economy that is complementary to what Ethereum is currently doing, but then also taking what Ethereum is currently doing and amplifying it by bringing it at the internet scale, where you don't have any kind of scalability issues and so forth. But the short version of the answer is, it's clear that we'll have a lot of bridges that will connect Elrond to the other blockchains. Of course, the first ones will be with Ethereum and Bitcoin and so forth. We've actually announced working on a bridge that already connects us with Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ontology, and Neo. So this is already pretty cool and exciting. But then even beyond this, I think we'll interact and interoperate with some of the other interesting protocols as well, because looking again 5 to 10 years in the future, it's clear that this space will be a multi-trillion-dollar asset class, and it's for that kind of scenario that you're building, where adoption is huge. It should be internet scale, but then perhaps a key thing that also differentiates Elrond from all the other architectures in the space is that we're not only understanding the infrastructure part, where we've put a lot of effort to carefully solve the problem and solve it in a way that you don't have to look at it again. But we also understand that in order to bring wide scale adoption, you really need two things. First, it's the internet scale blockchain that I've been discussing about. And second, it's this kind of UX redesign, complete redesign, so that you can bring not another million people, but 1 billion people in the blockchain space. So we're discussing that the two key points are, we're building an internet scale blockchain with an application that will address and bring all of these features to the next 1 billion people. And with this type of approach, you're setting some specific constraints that are extremely creative and productive in the long term. And then when this becomes super obvious, it's when you already have millions of people part of the ecosystem, and at that point every other protocol will want something like this. But it's of course tremendously difficult to solve the technical problem when you're having to solve the technical and UX problem that's nightmare mode squared. So yeah.
Oh man, you got me excited. This is fascinating stuff, and yeah, amazing what you guys are working on. With like decentralized oracles on the Chainlink stream here, how does Chainlink and decentralized oracles fit into the Elrond network?
Sure. The idea again with Chainlink is, if you look long term, it's clear that blockchains will be interacting with data feeds from around the world. There's absolutely no discussion about that. It's so common sense that in fact you see it as something too obvious. Like there's no scenario in which you could build anything meaningful with the real world that does not have oracles with data feeds. So this I think is super clear. And then furthermore, I see two kind of directions here. There's the immediate direction where it seems to me that oracles are the key component that you'll use in everything related to finance. And there's a huge space for instruments that are being built, whether it's DeFi, and we're seeing this already, or new instruments that we're going to build. This is a very fruitful space for oracles and for Chainlink. And then the more you look longer term, the more you'll see the real world integrations, where Internet of Things will rely on oracles being built in smart contracts and interacting with the blockchain layer in a way that you'll basically see, let me be maybe a bit more specific, the Teslas, self-driving cars, just driving away from home alone with no driver coming to pick you up somewhere, but then putting a stop to get the electricity there again in an automatic way. And then at that point, the car is charged, but then it's charged based on some metrics that are being sent through the feeds that you have through the oracles, and then the car moves away and comes to pick you up, and sort of after it leaves you somewhere, it becomes a taxi, bringing you money rather than consuming money. So I do think that you'll have pretty much everywhere this type of data feeds, because it's like the internet creates a kind of nervous system for humanity. So the more complex this nervous system is, the better it can interact with all the tools and devices that we're creating. And blockchains and oracles seem to be just natural components that will have to exist in order for this kind of nervous system to really enable very productive interaction.
Yeah, I love how you brought up the Tesla example. We had a hackathon, and Harry, a developer in our community, he actually built a Tesla car sharing app using the Chainlink Oracle and the Tesla API, and so that you can go and leave your car there, it would automatically open and go, and is all in production. Is pretty fascinating. Yeah,
super cool. Very, very interesting to hear.
Yeah, cool. With Elrond, 2020 is kind of coming to an end. What do you have planned for the rest of this year, and then where are you hitting the ground running on 2021?
The key word is hypergrowth. This is what gets us excited. At Elrond, we're pushing the limits in terms of how fast we keep going, how much we put the effort into quality, and it's super hardcore, super difficult at times, of course, but we would, of course, not be here if we would not have pushed so hard. So if you look at the collaborations and partnerships that we put out on the updates technical updates and upgrades for the network and so forth. Whether it's us, whether it's the community, putting a lot of events and interaction within the community to create, educate the new people and so forth. There's a certain spirit that keeps the ecosystem alive, and we want to keep this like that. And moving forward, I think we'll keep pushing super hard. So during the last few days, we had some major announcements. Among the announcements, what was the eToro X listing, which is huge for Elrond. eToro X has not listed projects in more than 12 months. It's a super hardcore due diligence process and so forth. We've been working on that for a long time, but we're quite excited about this because, again, it's opening a different kind of market. You see, eToro is outside of the normal crypto exchange. In fact, is at the intersection between stock markets and normal investors and so forth, traders, and now some crypto investors, but it's more on the mainstream side than on the crypto side. So we're quite excited about this because this, again, opens up a new set of opportunities that we're going to pursue. And moving forward, just as we announced a lot of stuff during the last period, during the next period, I think we're trying to beat that. I even wrote about this in a tweet that for 2021, we're actually trying to reach hypergrowth. And by hypergrowth, I said we're aiming to beat, to have a growth so large that will beat all previous years combined. And this gives you a sense of what we're aiming for. Specifically, we have a lot of cool things that are still coming up, whether it's integrations, collaborations, and so forth that we've been working on. We have the hackathon probably in sometime in January. We have the most complex mainnet upgrade yet, with more staking that's coming, a larger number of nodes that will be part of the network. The entire dev and tooling part being enabled, in the sense that up until this point, you were able to build smart contracts, deploy stuff, but it was on the testnet. And it's now that everything will be enabled on the mainnet. Super, super excited about that. And then obviously at the end of January, we have this huge milestone, which is the Maiar launch, where Maiar is this very simple and intuitive application that will bring crypto and blockchain to the next billion people. And this is just January. And then starting after January, we're trying to keep this pace, just push things as hard as possible, probably expand into several other countries. Yeah, it's insanely exciting. We don't try to, let's say, on the one hand, we try to look very far into the future, like 5 to 10 years, because everything clears out. There's no noise. You can clearly see the valuable things. And then on the other hand, you want to live as intense as possible in the immediate period, and not spend too much time worrying on the, let's say, what's happening 2 months down the road, other than having the plan and trying to beat it. So we always set some plans and then see how fast we can beat that. Is it possible? Let's make it happen.
Awesome. Yeah, love your philosophy and long-term vision and the scalability that you're aiming for with everything. So really exciting times. And yeah, if people want to follow, join your community and follow you, where's the best place for them to talk with the team and get involved?
Sure. The idea is that we have a Twitter always for the main updates and so forth. We have Telegram for some of the key discussions in the community, whatever questions you have. We have a Telegram group for the entire general community. We have a Telegram group for developers, a Telegram group for validators. And of course, on elrond.com, on the blog part, you get the chance to see all the main and important updates again. But yeah, feel free to check Twitter and Telegram. And we're quite happy to hear feedback, quite happy to hear from you when you want to build stuff. And yeah, will be very, very interesting to see how fast and things move forward.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to drop all those links in the description after. You got a lot of your community here. Do you have any asks for them at all?
Yeah, I think we want to keep spreading the word. I believe that the entire ecosystem is super early. Elrond is especially super early. So this means that we're probably not even 1% of what Elrond will become. So it's time to spread the word about Elrond, about the technology, about what you can build, what you can do as a validator, and how you can participate in the community. And I encourage everyone to do that to the degree we can really do it in a meaningful way. I think we'll see Elrond grow with an unprecedented speed.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot for that. And I feel like I could talk to you all day about this, but want to be respectful of your time and really appreciate you coming on today. And thanks a lot.
No, thanks a lot. Really great to be part of the conversation and work with you guys, Chainlink, and push things forward to a new standard.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, everyone, for joining in. Really, thanks a lot, Elrond community. Definitely showed up, and really appreciate it again. And have a good rest of your afternoon.
Awesome, guys. It's actually quite an evening here, but it's quite a good one.
Well, make sure to subscribe when we go on live again, and hit the like button on the video on your way out. And have a good rest of your evening.
Awesome, guys.